Following the devastating Battle of Illippa, Mago found himself stranded in Gades, the last Punic stronghold in Iberia. His hopes of reclaiming the province were crushed as Scipio successfully quelled resistance among the Iberians and suppressed a mutiny among Roman troops. Carthage, realizing the precarious situation, issued an order for Mago to abandon Iberia and sail to northern Italy. The mission was to coordinate with Hannibal and breathe new life into the war effort. Despite receiving some funds for mercenaries, the amount was insufficient, compelling Mago to resort to requisitioning funds from the public treasury and temples of Gades. An unsuccessful naval assault on Carthago Nova was ostensibly aimed at securing additional resources. Upon returning, Mago discovered the gates of Gades shut, prompting him to sail to the Balearic Islands. He settled for the winter in Minorca after facing challenges in raising a stronger army. In the summer of 205 BC, a sudden appearance of a Carthaginian fleet along the Ligurian coast marked a significant event. Under the command of Mago, the fleet comprised approximately 30 warships and numerous transport vessels, transporting a formidable army of 14,000 soldiers. Genoa was taken by surprise as Mago swiftly moved through the Angoni territory, forming an alliance with them against the Apentiri, another Ligurian tribe. The region of Liguria and Cisalpine Gaul provided an advantageous theater for Mago's military operations. Despite Rome's earlier victorious campaigns in the Po Valley and extensive colonization efforts, the local Gauls remained unsubjugated. In 205 BC, spurred by the presence of Hannibal's younger brother Mago, the Insubres and Boii tribe once again rose in rebellion. Mago's army steadily grew in size, attracting Gauls from various regions enchanted by his reputation. News of these developments filled the Roman senators with profound concern, leading them to swiftly dispatch two armies to Ariminum and Iridium to block any potential southern advance by Mago. The Romans seemed poised to face consequences for their failure to capitalize on the victory at the Metaurus River by fully subduing the Cisalpine Gauls. However, the threat posed by Mago's landing should not be overstated. Despite receiving reinforcements from Carthage, including around 7,000 troops, 7 elephants, and 25 warships, Mago's forces were still insufficient to break through Roman defenses. Consequently, he did not actively pursue Carthage's objective of marching south to join Hannibal. Mago faced the challenging task that his brother Hasdrubal had failed to accomplish 2 years prior. Aware of Hasdrubal's fate, Mago understood the importance of a well-prepared offensive against the concentrated Roman forces. To achieve this, he organized a meeting with Gallic and Ligurian chieftains, assuring them that his mission was to liberate them. However, he emphasized the need for a larger army. While the Ligurians immediately committed themselves, the Gauls, threatened by Roman armies on their borders and within their homeland, hesitated to openly revolt. Despite this, they clandestinely provided supplies and mercenaries, contributing to the gradual growth of Mago's strength. Meanwhile, the proconsul Livius transitioned from Etruria to Cisalpine Gaul, joining forces with the Roman commander Lucretius to block Mago's route to Rome. However, Livius opted for a defensive stance. In 204 BC, the situation remained relatively unchanged. Mago's inactivity persisted due to the mentioned reasons, while the Romans grappled with physical and moral exhaustion from the prolonged war. Their concerns included compelling the Latin colonies, which had previously refused to contribute funds and soldiers. One of the new consuls, Sempronius Tuditanus, was dispatched against Hannibal in Bruttium, while the other, Cornelius Cethegus, had the task of remaining in Etruria to quash the conspiracy formed by Mago with various rebellious Etrurian towns. In 203 BC, the moment arrived for a decisive confrontation. The proconsul Cornelius Cethegus and the praetor Quintilius Varus commanded an army of 4 legions against Mago in a conventional battle within the Insubrean territory. Livy's account in his History of Rome indicates that both sides arranged their forces into 2 battle lines. In the Roman army, 2 legions formed the front line, while the remaining 2 legions and the cavalry were positioned behind them. Mago, too, took precautions for a potential reversal, outplacing the Gallic levy and the limited number of elephants he had in the rear. Recent assessments propose that his total military force surpassed 30,000 soldiers. Both Roman commanders urged their troops to launch a fierce attack on the Carthaginian forces. However, the course of the battle revealed the superior performance of the first Carthaginian line. The Romans found their attempts to break the enemy's resistance fruitless from the beginning, and they were under significant pressure. Recognizing the slow progress and the unexpected resilience of the enemy, Praetor Varus devised a bold cavalry charge in the hopes of shaking the Carthaginians and forcing them to retreat. Accompanied by his son Marcus, Varus rode to the cavalry, directed them to mount, and swiftly sent them charging against the enemy. The impact of their charge was amplified by the battle cries of the legions. The opposing lines would likely have crumbled, but Mago promptly deployed his elephants as soon as he observed the cavalry in action. The appearance, trumpeting, and scent of these elephants frightened the horses, rendering the Roman cavalry ineffective. While Roman cavalrymen proved superior in close combat, when able to use swords and lances, the terror-induced dispersal of the Roman cavalry allowed Mago's light Numidian cavalry to pursue and scatter them. Subsequently, the elephants redirected their aggression towards the Roman infantry. The 12th Legion had suffered substantial casualties and continued holding their position more out of a reluctance to face the shame of a retreat than with any optimism of mounting an effective defense. Their endurance would likely have waned further if not for the intervention of the 13th Legion, which was held in reserve and now joined the uncertain struggle. In response to the arrival of the fresh Roman legion, Mago brought up his own reserves, consisting of Gauls. However, the hastati of the 11th Legion easily routed these Gauls, allowing them to regroup and target the elephants that were causing disorder among the Roman infantry ranks. With a barrage of well-aimed javelins showered upon the crowded elephants, the Roman soldiers consistently hit their marks, forcing the elephants to retreat back into the Carthaginian lines, with 4 of them sustaining severe wounds. Finally, the Carthaginian forces began to retreat, and the entire Roman infantry, observing the elephants turning against their own side, surged forward to intensify the chaos and panic among the Carthaginians. As long as Mago maintained his position at the front, his troops withdrew gradually and maintained good order. However, when they witnessed Mago being seriously wounded and carried almost unconscious from the battlefield, a general flight ensued. The enemy's losses amounted to 5,000 men, and the Romans seized 22 standards. Nevertheless, the Roman victory was not without its toll. 2,300 men were lost in the praetor's army, primarily from the 12th Legion, including 2 military tribunes, Casconius and Maevius. The 13th Legion, which entered the battle as reinforcements, also suffered casualties. Helvius, a military tribune, fell while contributing to the restoration of the battle. Additionally, 22 members of the cavalry corps, hailing from distinguished families, along with some centurions, were trampled to death by the elephants. The battle would have extended further had Mago's injury not tipped the scales in favor of the Romans. The defeat dealt a severe blow to Mago. With the Romans now in control of the Po Valley, any hopes of replicating earlier successes in the war faded away. This outcome was particularly crucial in light of the ongoing Roman progress in Africa. Scipio's triumphs at Utica and the Great Plains, coupled with Mago's failure in Cisalpine Gaul, not only allowed Scipio to consolidate his position in Africa, but also compelled Mago to return to defend his homeland. Carthaginian messengers reached Mago in the Ngani territory, prompting him to sail back to Africa with a portion of his army. While some sources claim that Mago succumbed to the wound he sustained in the battle during this voyage, others assert that he returned to Liguria shortly after his departure and remained there for at least 2 more years. What is certain is that for 5 years following the conclusion of the Second Punic War, the Romans had to contend with remnants of Carthaginian forces in northern Italy. Mago's defeat in 203 BC marked one of the final attempts to resist the Roman advance and preserve the independence of this region.